My name is Aaron. I'm 39, and until last winter I would have sworn I was a good man having a hard year, not a hard man creating a bad one. We live in Fort Wayne, Indiana, on a cul-de-sac where the same three dads talk about lawn seed like it's currency and the kids chalk hopscotch courts that survive two rains. My wife, Leah, runs a small community arts nonprofit. I sell regional ad packages for a media company that keeps renaming itself every time the stock falls. We've been married 11 years. Steady is the word our friends use. They mean it kindly. There's a before and an after to this story, and a thin hinge where everything swung. The before looked healthy on paper. Two incomes, a modest mortgage, one paid-off Corolla, a golden retriever allergic to everything. The hinge was slower. Emails at 9:58 p.m. from a new interim VP who signed off circle back. Commissions shaved in ways my paycheck could feel, and a sales leaderboard posted each Monday like a public weigh-in. I started waking at 4:17 a.m. with a pressure behind my ribs that had me counting ceiling cracks like prayer beads. Leo would roll toward me, palm my chest, and whisper, "Breathe, love." I'd say, "I'm fine," because I thought that was my job, to be fine enough for both of us. Burnout convinces you it's noble. It tells you the ache you carry is proof you're doing enough. I started taking extra calls in the car after dinner, nodding at nobody while Leah cleared plates I hadn't tasted. She said, "I miss you," and I made a joke about being 6 feet away. She said, "No, Aaron, I miss you," and I kissed the top of her head like a man rewarding a dog for waiting. There are 100 small cruelties no one teaches you to count. The first message from her came on a Thursday when the office coffee tasted like scorched bark. Great insights in the pitch, it read, an internal chat from a new contractor on a client account. Maya? She dropped 3 bullet points about the deck I'd thrown together at midnight, the ones my boss ignored during the call. "You saved us," she added. To be seen when your own house takes your steadiness for granted can feel like oxygen, especially when your steadiness has started to fray. I typed teamwork and put my phone face down like that made me principled. Nothing happened that day, or the next. We traded files and fixed typos. She lived in Chicago, 2 hours and a whole set of assumptions away. We joked about the company jargon, how right-sizing means fewer chairs at the table and leaning in means working while someone else leans out. She sent a photo of her desk plant drooping. I sent a photo of our dog wearing cone of shame. If you look from far enough away, it was harmless. If you look from where I was standing, it was a mirror I preferred to our bathroom one. Leah asked me to come to the community center one Friday to hang lights for a teen showcase. "They'll listen to you," she said. "You have coach energy." I said I had a late call. I didn't. I had a late hunger for what I wouldn't say out loud. I remember Leah in the kitchen that night, looping green wire through her hands, smiling the tired smile of people who carry more than they're credited for. She kissed me on the cheek, the kind of kiss marriages learn, gentle, light, a receipt for groceries shared. I scrolled a message that began "still up" and deleted it. I told myself I was loyal because I could still delete. The first time Maya and I met in person was purely practical. My boss pushed a pitch lunch onto my calendar in Chicago, said the account liked FaceTime, and told me to bring your A game. Maya texted a coffee shop 3 blocks from the client. "Safer than the lobby," she wrote. She was shorter than I expected and warmer. She laughed with her shoulders, not just her mouth. We rehearsed the deck, compared notes, then drifted into the kind of talk that makes you forget you're at work, where you grew up, the job you almost took, the song your mother cleaned the house to on Saturdays. There is a point when connection becomes a decision. If you pretend you didn't see the sign, you can later call it an accident. I saw it. I stepped closer. I wish I could tell you I turned around there. I wish I could say I went back to the client lobby, did the pitch, sent the file, and drove home to tell my wife I'd been disappearing by inches and needed help to find my own outline. Instead, I took the long way, not on the road, but in my head. I told myself I deserved to be admired. I told myself Leah and I were in a rut, and ruts are geology, not choices. I told myself this was temporary, a season, a harmless ladder thrown against a burning house. That's how people talk when the truth is asking to be named and you don't like its face. We didn't cross a line that day. We crossed a threshold. It sounds the same until you're the one standing in the doorway. My phone buzzed on the drive back. "You make hard rooms feel easier," she wrote. I stared at the message until the light behind it turned green. At home, Leah had left a casserole warming with a note that read, "Proud of you, no matter the board." I ate on the couch with the TV low, the dog's cone bumping my knee like a tiny lighthouse keeping me from rocks. Leah came in from rehearsal at 9:30, cheeks pink from the cold. "How'd it go?" she asked. "Fine," I said, and the word did what it always does. It closed a door that should have stayed open. I didn't tell her about the coffee shop. I didn't tell her that for the first time in months, my chest felt quiet, and I'd outsourced the quiet to a stranger. I didn't tell her because telling would have required choosing, and choosing would have required breaking the story I was selling myself. That a good man having a hard year can borrow warmth without burning anything down. I know now what I didn't then. Borrowed warmth still leaves a mark. The hinge had already turned. I just couldn't hear the door. There's a difference between a line and a slope. You can swear you haven't crossed a line while sliding a full mile down a slope you named harmless. After Chicago, I told myself I'd earned a decent night's sleep. I slept, yes, like the guilty do when the story still fits in their pocket. Work rewarded the wrong parts of me. The client signed. My boss slapped my back hard enough to feel like forgiveness I hadn't asked for. "Whatever you two did, keep doing it," he said, meaning the deck, pretending not to mean the chemistry. He CC'd both of us on an email titled Momentum, and I replied with bullet points that left out the part where I felt seen by a stranger in a way that made my marriage look like a map from last year. Leah asked if I could swing by the community center Saturday, paint touch-ups in the dance studio, a loose handle on the storage closet. "The kids are proud of the space," she said. "They treat it better when it looks like a place that believes in them." That sentence is who she is. She sees care as an ecosystem. I said yes, and then looked at my calendar like a coward shopping for alibis. I texted my boss about a client debrief, and he replied with a thumbs up and a wink I could feel even without the emoji. Maya texted Friday night, "Congrats on the win. I owe you coffee next time you're down." I typed, "Teamwork," then stared at the word until it looked like a stranger's name. I added, "I'll be in the area Tuesday." For PM? Typed isn't the same as sent, but it's not different enough. Leah fell asleep on the couch halfway through an old movie, her head on my thigh, the dog snoring like a tiny motor. I watched a scene where two characters miss the moment they're supposed to say what matters and tell themselves there'll be a better one. Cinema forgives that. Life keeps receipts. Saturday, I painted baseboards and fixed a closet handle. The kids drifted in and out of the studio, and call me Mr. Alike, it was a nickname that could save me. Leah wore a bandana and a smear of cadmium yellow on her cheek. She smiled at me the way people smile at each other when they still trust the ground. I swallowed a sentence that tasted like confession and pasted over it with primer. That's how slopes keep you, one coat at a time. Tuesday, I drove to Chicago for a follow-up. I could have said no. Could have is a cruel verb. I texted Leah a photo of the client building lobby. She sent back a heart and a go get him. I told myself I was only meeting Maya afterward because traffic's worse at 5 and coffee's cheaper than therapy. She was already at the corner table when I walked in, hair damp from the snow, cheeks bright. "You look less haunted," she said, and the part of me that had been starving licked its lips. We talked about contracts first, then childhood, then the album our dads played on road trips, her Springsteen, mine Petty, and how both bands sing like they've been forgiven by the highway. She told me about the time she got lost in O'Hare as a kid and decided all airports were just math if you didn't panic. I told her about the time I cried on a freeway shoulder at 23 because a tire and a plan gave out at the same time. We didn't touch. We didn't have to. I left with a to-go cup, a second wind, and a number I wasn't supposed to need to dial when the house was quiet. On the drive home, I rehearsed what I'd report to Leah. The meeting, the numbers, the boss's grin. I edited out the part where I learned Maya's dog's name and discovered that we both eat cereal at night like kids with keys. Edit, edit, edit. You can make anything sound like just business if you strip it down to nouns. That night, Leah had a board meeting. I fed the dog, answered work emails, and stared at the oven clock like I could cook a better person at 350 degrees. At 9:12, my phone buzzed. "You make hard rooms feel easier," Maya wrote. The same sentence from last time, recycled or remembered, I couldn't tell. I typed "you too. Get home safe." Then I deleted "you too" and sent "you" as well. That's the slope talking. Syntax as confession. Leah came in smelling like cold air and acrylic paint. "The board approved the youth mural," she said, dropping her bag. "They're trusting me with the grant." I'm freaking out in a good way. She wanted celebration. I gave her a high five and a "proud of you," then checked my phone face down like it was a nervous habit, not a tether. She noticed. Of course she noticed. "You okay?" she asked. "Work won't quit," I said, which was true in the way a half-truth keeps you from the whole one. She stood very still and then nodded, the way people do when they choose not to argue with a storm. That week I got better at not saying. I got worse at not doing. I rearranged my lunch break to overlap with a window when Maya liked to walk by the river and call. We spoke about podcasts and difficult bosses and the kindness of strangers who hold elevator doors as if their choices change weather. The calls were short. That's how I convinced myself nothing was happening. Short things don't count. Ask any addict who has ever sworn they're only taking half. Leah asked Saturday if I wanted to drive to Toledo to see her parents. My stomach tightened. Her mom loves me, which is terrible when you're busy not deserving it. "This pitch cycle is brutal," I said, and Leah looked at me like a person memorizing someone else's alibi, not because she believes it, but because she believes in them. "Okay," she said. "We'll go next month." Sunday night, a storm came through with rain that sounded like applause for a performance I hadn't given. Leah crawled into my lap on the couch and said, "Say one unedited thing." It's a game we used to play when either one of us felt far away. No caveats, no jokes. Just a sentence with its coat off. I froze. Not because I had nothing, because I had too much. I said, "I'm tired of selling things to people who want something to believe in," which was true and not the truth she was asking for. She nodded, tucked under my chin, and said, "Me too. But we're not what we sell, right?" The dog's cone bumped my knee again, lighthouse on duty. I kissed Leah's hair and try not to look like a man slipping. When I fell asleep, I dreamed I was standing in a doorway with a line drawn across it in chalk. I spent the whole night arguing with the chalk that I hadn't crossed it. In the morning, the chalk replied in my handwriting, "We don't need a line. We have a slope." The next hinge arrived on a Tuesday at 4:03 p.m. in the form of a calendar invite titled "Offsite Planning." Optional. Optional is a word that has ruined a lot of people. The invite said "Offsite Planning." Optional, which is corporate for show up if you want to stay visible. Tuesday for 03 p.m., 2 hours blocked, location. A co-working loft that sells exposed brick as culture. I told Leah I'd be late, left out drinks after, and put on the shirt she once called my good decisions blue. If irony could wrinkle fabric, it would have. The room had the usual theater, a whiteboard covered in arrows pretending we were headed somewhere, a snack table of items humans never buy for themselves, and a novelty neon sign that said "Do the work" in cursive. My boss shook my hand like a man measuring grip as loyalty. Maya was already there, talking to an analyst about a dashboard no one would check after the first week. She caught my eye, lifted a hand, and did the small smile you give someone who knows your shorthand. We broke into groups. Mine was growth paths, which is how you say more with less without triggering HR. I offered phrases I've learned to say without blushing: pilot, pressure test, customer journey, and the room nodded like bobbleheads. Maya sat across from me, jotting notes in a handwriting that meant business in a nicer school district than mine. When the VP said, "Let's take this offline," the clock said 5:47 and the bar downstairs said happy hour with a chalkboard heart. I should have gone home. Should have is a verb that grows teeth when you feed it. Maya asked, "You staying for one?" I said, "One," because that's what people say when they plan to tell themselves later it was only one. The bar had concrete floors and a menu that spelled old words in new ways. We ordered things served in small glasses and pretended we liked the taste of ambition. A colleague told a story about a pitch that died on contact. The table laughed because if you can laugh at a thing, you can almost convince yourself it didn't bruise. When the group thinned, Maya and I stayed. She said, "You look less haunted." Again, the repeat felt like permission and a test. I slept. I lied, and we drifted into the soft orbit where everything feels lighter because you're not home where things matter. She asked about Leah in a way that was either kind or dangerous, maybe both. I said, "She's a better human than I am." I meant it and used it as a shield. At 7:12, Leah texted, "Any idea when you'll be home?" "Dog's meds are at 8. I typed, "Leaving in 10, and turned my phone face down, which is how I learned to call avoidance polite. Maya said, "Do you ever feel like you're auditioning for the role of yourself?" I laughed too hard because the joke fit like a jacket made for me. We talked families, expectations, the kind of small griefs that don't get funerals. I told her my dad used to say, "If it squeaks, it's telling you what it needs," and how I'd never figured out what to do when the squeak was inside me. She said, "Maybe you stop oiling it and listen." We walked out to the sidewalk where January was practicing to be cruel. My car was 2 blocks north. Hers was 2 blocks south. We stood at the corner like a choice could be a crosswalk. "Thank you for tonight," she said. "For being here." She didn't finish the sentence. That's the trick of proximity. It lets you write your own ending. I drove home through neighborhoods that didn't remember me. Every red light looked like a chance to be decent. Every green looked like a dare. The dog met me at the door with his cone, lighthouse and storm, and Leah called kitchen. She was sitting at the table with a stack of program flyers, highlighter in hand, tea gone cold. "How was the offsite?" she asked, and I gave her nouns, whiteboards, action items, next steps, and left out every verb that mattered. She pointed at the dog. He took the pill like a champ. I used peanut butter diplomacy. She smiled, then held my gaze a beat longer than a smile needs. "Everything okay?" "Yes," I said too quickly. She noticed the word hit the floor before I did. We're doing a big push. Optional becomes not optional. "Right," she said, and under the word right I heard "I'm not an idiot." She stacked her flyers, put a palm flat on them to square the edges, and said, "Come hang light Saturday? I could use you." The invitation felt like a rope toss from a boat. I said, "Of course," and meant it for the version of me that would exist if Tuesday never happened. We went to bed top to tail of a quiet city. She scrolled volunteer signups. I scrolled nothing in particular and too much in general. At 11:08, a text from Maya. "Made it home. Thanks for staying human in a room that wasn't." I typed, "You too. Good night." I thought about adding an emoji that would make it look like a friend thing. I didn't. The slope doesn't need emojis. It has gravity. The next morning, Leah left early for a donor breakfast. I fed the dog, rinsed a mug, and saw my reflection in the window. The man who says, "It's not what it looks like" to himself. My phone buzzed. Roadshow kickoff next week. Chicago again? Could sync? I began to type, "Let's keep it strictly," and stopped because I couldn't finish the sentence without choking on the word strictly. I put the phone down like it had asked me a question I wasn't allowed to answer. At work, the VP floated the idea of a 2-day team sprint in Chicago. The email said flexible lodging, which is HR for share rooms if you like each other. I told myself I would drive in for the sessions and drive out for my marriage. I drafted a response with boundaries that sounded firm if you didn't know me. Day trip for me. Home by evening. I CC'd my boss so the record would remember me as a man with lines. At lunch, I called Leah. "How's the breakfast?" I asked. "Fine," she said, and the word did to me what it does. It shut a door that should have stayed open. They love the kids' work. I wish they'd love the utility bill half as much. "I can wire money Friday," I said. "Commissions hit." "That's not what I asked," she said, not unkind. "I asked if you can come to the showcase. Presence is different than payment." I swallowed the part of me that equates money with love and said, "Yes." Then, quieter, I added, "I want to be the man you think I am." She breathed, and the line softened. "Be the man you promised," she said. Promises are better than impressions. That night, I opened my calendar and drew boxes around the times that would belong to Chicago and the times that would belong to Leah. Boxes are a comforting lie. Life colors outside them. On cue, an email, client dinner added, optional but encouraged. Optional's teeth again. I stared at the screen and felt the floor tilt. The whole house on a slope pretending to be a line. I wish I could say I wrote back, I won't. I wish I could tell you that was the day I chose. Instead, I looped the rope of maybe around my wrist and told myself it wasn't tightening. The hinge creaked. The door waited. I pretended not to hear it because the next sound I craved wasn't a door closing. It was praise arriving in a voice that didn't live in my kitchen. The week slid toward Chicago like a glass, toward the edge of a table nobody meant to bump. I told myself I'd keep the day neat. Drive up at 8, sit in rooms that worship slides, clap when asked, and drive home in time to help Leah hang paper lanterns for the teen showcase. I could make both boxes true, I told myself. Boxes are lies we write with rulers. Leah stood at the door Friday morning with a coil of extension cords looped over her shoulder like a bandolier. "Text me when you land," she said, teasing on purpose because she knows I'm driving. Kidding. "Just let me know when you're leaving for home. The kids want Mr. Aaron to test the mic. You sound like a trustworthy weather report." "I'll be there," I said, and meant it in the way promises mean something in your mouth and something else in your calendar. The first session was Narratives That Convert, which would have been funny if it wasn't my life. The speaker wrote trust on a slide in a font that looked stolen from an airport sign and told us to meet customers where they are. Where I was 2 floors down and 3 streets over, in a coffee shop that smelled like cinnamon and ketchup. At lunch, Maya texted, "Corner table if you need air." I stared at the tray of catered sandwiches as if mustard could hand me a spine. 15 minutes, I typed and lied to time the way gamblers lie to themselves, small, confident, doomed. She was there when I opened the door, already lifting 2 cups from the counter. "You look like you're being graded," she said, sliding one across. "I am," I said. "It's called adulthood." We talked in a shorthand that comes from practicing with each other's sentences. She asked if Leah's showcase was tonight. I said yes. She said, "You should leave at 4, like it was the simplest math." I said, "Client dinner at 5 optional, but encouraged." And we both made the face people make when they hear the word optional after they've already learned its teeth. "Leave," she said again, and sipped. "The room won't remember your absence. Rooms rarely do." "You will," I said, surprising both of us. She put the cup down in a circle of light on the table. "Aaron," she said, and my name felt like a diagnosis. "You keep trying to split yourself into 2 men and then complain about the cost of living double. Pick, then pay." It was the cleanest advice I'd gotten in months. Clean doesn't mean easy. I told her I was leaving at 4. Saying things out loud makes them heavier, which is the point. Back upstairs, the second session was frictionless journeys. Somebody drew arrows on a whiteboard that led to a circle that said loyalty. I set an alarm on my phone for 3:50 and sat on my hands because my hands think they're in charge. At 3:41, the VP announced a quick huddle to prep for the client dinner. At 3:43, my alarm felt like a fire drill. I walked to the front, kept my voice even, and said, "I've got a prior commitment. I'm heading out." He blinked like I'd spoken a dialect he didn't hire. "Optional doesn't mean optional," he said, only half a joke. "It does today," I said, and my stomach clenched at my own spine. "I'll debrief in the morning." In the garage, my car looked like a getaway car and a confession booth. I texted Leah, "Leaving now. Home by 6:30. Save me a ladder." She sent back 3 exclamation points and a gif of a teenager doing a spin on stage that made my eyes sting in a way I blamed on dust that wasn't there. Traffic had other plans. Chicago decided to audition for a disaster movie I didn't buy tickets for. A fender bender near the Skyway, brake lights strobed for miles, and my ET would turn into poetry, shifting, imprecise, cruel. At 5:18, Leah texted, "We're here. Lights are creative. No pressure. Just get here." At 5:39, "Kids are sound checking. You're still my favorite weather report." At 6:12, "Don't speed. We can wing it." I didn't speed. I thought about it. I didn't. And because I didn't, I turned onto our block at 6:47 and pulled into our driveway at 6:49 and jogged into the community center at 6:56 to find paper lanterns already glowing like quiet planets and a teen with a headset saying, "You must be Mr. Aaron. Tap that mic." I tapped. It worked, because someone else had fixed it. Leah stood near the back, arms crossed, chin lifted the way she does when she's proud, and try not to show how much she needed help getting there. She saw me and gave a small, slow nod. Not a parade, a receipt. I stood beside her and said nothing because the room needed silence more than it needed me. The showcase was what small-town miracles look like. A kid who never makes eye contact belting a Billie Eilish song with her eyes closed. A pair of brothers doing a step routine so crisp the room forgot to breathe for a beat. A shy poet reading about a house with a roof made of rain, and everyone clapping like they knew how heavy roofs can be. I held Leah's schedule and handed her tape and kept my mouth shut. It felt like a new muscle, sir, in the right ways. After, while we pulled down lanterns, Leah said, "Thank you for coming." Then, quieter, "Thank you for choosing to come." I said, and realized it sounded like defense. I chose to. She put a hand on a paper globe and smoothed a wrinkle that didn't matter. "Choosing once is good," she said. "Choosing consistently is character." "I can do consistent," I said, saying it made my tongue heavy. "I'm trying. I can tell," she said, and the words didn't forgive me. They dated the attempt. On the drive home, the dog in the back seat snored into his cone, Lighthouse pleased with his own persistence. My phone buzzed. A group text photo from the client dinner. Everyone at a long table, glasses up, neon sign in the background saying "Work hard, play harder" like a threat. No one noticed I wasn't there. Rooms rarely do. Then a private message from Maya. "You make hard rooms feel easier. Hope the right room felt you tonight." I watched the bubble wait for my response. Leah rested her head against the window and closed her eyes. I typed nothing. I put the phone face down on my thigh and let the silence be a sentence. Outside, the streetlights did what they always do. Show you just enough road to get home if you don't insist on seeing the whole map. At the house, Leah said, "I'm beat." At the door, she paused. "Tomorrow? Breakfast on the porch? No phones. Just eggs and weather." "Yes," I said. "Boxes are lies. Maybe breakfasts aren't." In bed, I felt sleep coming like a truce. Then the other shoe, the one I kept lacing, hit the floor in the form of a calendar alert. Roadshow Day 2, client follow-ups / team drinks, optional. I turned the phone face down again. Optional's teeth glinted in the dark. I try not to count them. Breakfast on the porch is what stability tastes like. Eggs that came out right the first time, toast cut on the diagonal, because Leah swears triangles make mornings kinder. Saturday delivered a sky so clean the air felt ironed. We ate without rushing. The dog patrolled the yard in his cone like a deeply committed security guard. Leah read the local paper like a person who still believes neighborhoods are real. I refilled her coffee and left my phone inside because I wanted the quiet to count for something other than absence. "Tell me one thing you're proud of from this week," she said, butter knife pointing at me like a friendly gavel. "Leaving Chicago," I answered. "Not just leaving, staying in the room before I went." My voice didn't tremble. She nodded, pleased but not dazzled. "Good. Next week, same question." Different answer. Different answer. I repeated, like a pledge you can hold in your mouth. We cleaned up in companionable choreography. She rinsed, I dried, the kind of dance you don't brag about but miss when you lose it. At the sink she asked, "Any fallout from skipping the dinner?" "Not much," I said. A heavy sigh from the VP. "I'll survive the weather patterns." I didn't mention the private text from Maya. "Hope the right room felt you tonight," because I decided silence was mercy. Silence is often a costume. Sunday was errands and laundry and fixing the cabinet hinge that's been whispering someday for months. We moved like a couple inside the same sentence, subject and verb aligned. I almost said, "I've been talking too much with someone at work. It's gotten blurry." Almost. I decided the moment wasn't right. Moments rarely announce themselves with trumpets. They knock like the mail and leave a note if you don't open. Monday arrived with the politeness of a punch you half expected. The VP stacked optional invites on our calendars like coasters. Team drinks, drop in, client mixer, no pressure. Maya pinged me a separate note. "If you're coming up Wednesday, there's a quiet coffee spot near the venue." No neon signs telling us what to do. I stared at the message, so long it felt like a riddle. I typed, "Trying to keep my evenings clean." Then added, "Proud of you for last week's deck." Then deleted the second sentence because I didn't want to sound like a man practicing restraint while still feeding it. Leah texted at noon. "Picked paint swatches for the center's foyer. You're on tiebreaker duty tonight." A photo followed. 3 shades that all looked like synonyms for hope. I wrote back, "Number 2 looks like daylight, even when it rains." She sent a heart. Hearts are simple until your own starts hedging. At 4:11, the VP called. "Aaron, I want you in the city Wednesday and Thursday. FaceTime matters. We're pushing a cross-sell." I told him I'd drive in early and leave early. He laughed, friendly, practiced, weaponized. "At least stay for the mixer. It's where the soft asks happen." Soft ask is corporate for the part where alcohol makes you say yes. I went home and tried to make tie-breaking paint decisions feel like a wall against all that. We held swatches up. We argued gently. We took a break because oranges don't care about your color theory. The dog, undistracted by ethics, fell asleep with his cone wedged under a chair like a ship in dry dock. When Leah tossed the swatches onto the table, one slid under my phone, and I picked both up at once. The screen lit with a preview I didn't want lit. "You around Wednesday?" No neon, just coffee. Leah didn't glance fast. She has earned patience the hard way. "Work?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Truth's cousin. Scheduling." She nodded and let it be, which somehow hurt worse than suspicion. Trust can feel like a hand on your back, guiding you forward, or like a hand you don't deserve that you keep pocketing anyway. Tuesday afternoon, Mark, the friend who tells me truths like he's tossing life preservers, called. "You sound better," he said before I'd said anything. "I'm trying to keep my lines simple," I said. "Yes to what I can live with. No to what I can't." "Good. Then say no out loud, not just in your head." "I have been," I said, which was true on paper and shakier in practice. There's a phrase my therapist uses, name the arrangement. If you pretend you've agreed to nothing, everything you do feels like a side quest. I hadn't named anything with Maya because naming would have made the next right step obvious. Stop. Wednesday, the lobby smelled like citrus and ambition. I drove up, parked in the overpriced lot that charges by the minute, so indecision costs money, and texted Leah. "Day trip still. We'll call it 6 for dinner duty." She sent back a thumbs up, and "Don't forget the kid's grant letter needs your proofread." Proofreading is the safest intimacy I know. The day moved like a treadmill, set one notch faster than my legs wanted. By 4:30, the VP was holding court near the elevators, his smile saying, "You're not leaving now, right?" I planned to slip. I planned to text Leah and tell her I'd be 10 minutes behind schedule. I planned to be a decent man in a room that rewards men for being interesting instead. Maya appeared at my shoulder like a thought I'd been trying not to have. "I won't keep you," she said, reading my posture better than I could. "Coffee near the venue is still quiet if you need to buy yourself a boundary before the mixer." "I'm heading out," I said. "I promised Leah dinner." "Good," she said, and meant it. "Then go. Let the room live without you." I left. I actually left. I made it to the garage. I sat in the car. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb like a talisman. Then my dashboard flashed a warning light about a tire that was fine this morning and apparently bore now. The service station 2 blocks over patched a nail with hands that looked like they've been telling the truth longer than I've been lying. While I waited, I answered email drafts on my phone, including a half-typed note to Maya that read, "Proud of you for drawing lines in rooms that erase them." I didn't send it. I erased proud and watched the cursor blink like a metronome for decisions. On the drive home, I felt, briefly, like a person who had kept a promise visible in the daylight. I called Leah from the on-ramp. "Starting pasta," I said. "Do we have basil?" "Check the freezer," she said. "Left side." Then, soft, good timing. At a stoplight, I tried to text Mark a victory lap, left the city. Kept it boring. I typed too fast. I didn't look. I hit send. The light turned green. A ding replied. I glanced down and saw what my anxious thumb had done. Sent the message to the wrong thread. Not Mark's. Maya's. Left the city. Kept it boring. I pulled into a grocery lot and parked diagonally like a teenager who just learned he wasn't special. 3 dots appeared. Maya typing. Then stopped. Then returned. "Good," she wrote. "Keep it that way." I exhaled hard enough to fog the windshield. Then my phone lit with another message I didn't deserve. Leah's selfie from our kitchen. "Pasta, steam," her smile small and real. "Hurry. Sauce waits for no man." I typed to Maya. That was meant for someone else. But still true. She replied, "Let's keep it that way. No coffee. No neon. No almosts. 2 roads in the same hand." I chose home. It felt less like a triumph and more like an alignment. In the kitchen, Leah handed me a wooden spoon like a scepter you only hold if you're gentle. "Proofread after dinner?" she asked. "Yes," I said, and set my phone face down. Not as a hiding place this time, but as a practice. Silence, this time, wasn't pretending to be mercy. It was making room for something better. Pasta steam fogged the kitchen window, while Leah grated Parmesan with the focus of surgeon. It smelled like a home I didn't want to lose. Basil from the freezer, garlic pretending to be more than itself, the dog station like a statue of appetite. I stirred the sauce and told myself to say the thing I kept timing. Timing is what cowards call editing. After we ate, Leah pushed the grant letter across the table. "Proofread voice, activate," she said, tapping a paragraph. I marked 2 commas and 1 sentence that tried to do 3 jobs. I caught a typo and a tone. Impactful where proven would do. We worked in that quiet that couples earn by years of not dramatizing what doesn't need a stage. When we were done, I said, "I need to say something you won't like." Leah didn't flinch. She set the pen down, lined it parallel to the paper, and folded her hands. "Say it," she said. "Not harsh. Not warm. Clear. I've been blurred with someone at work." The sentence felt like I was confessing to bumping a table while leaving out the broken vase. It started as jokes and decks. It turned into texts and moments. I didn't cross the line I promised you I wouldn't. But I stood on it and argued with the chalk. She looked at me the way you look at a leak to see if the floor is already ruined. Her name, Maya, I said. Chicago contractor. We worked a client together. It was easy to be seen. I let that feed me when I should have been hungry in our house. Leah nodded once, and it was the saddest thing. How familiar that nod looked, like she'd been practicing for a day she hoped wouldn't arrive. How far? She asked. I don't want a novel. I want the map. No hotel rooms. No hands. Coffee. Texts. Staying late when I didn't need to. Wanting admiration that wasn't yours to give. She exhaled, long, controlled. So, emotional, she said, as if checking a box on a form. A romance of words and proximity. Yes, I said, and the yes made me smaller and somehow truer. Did you tell her it was over? I thought of the accidental text, left the city, kept it boring, and Maya's reply, keep it that way. Clean edges I hadn't earned. I told her today, no coffee, no almost. Work in daylight or not at all. Leah's mouth twitched in a way I couldn't read. Relieved or resigned or both. Good, she said. Now tell me why it took this long. Because I wanted to be applauded more than I wanted to be known. Because I was tired. Because my pride put on a lab coat and called itself research. The true answer is always fewer words than your defense. I like feeling like the easiest version of myself, I said. You know the whole person? She knew the highlight reel. Leah stood, walked to the sink, and turned on the water without needing it. She watched it for a second, like it could keep her company. You're not the first man to be flattered by a room that doesn't know the mortgage, she said, voice flat as a slate. But you're the man who made vows to me. This isn't a trend story. It's a house story. I know, I said. I'm sorry. The words were smaller than the room. Don't audition remorse, she said without turning. Name the arrangement and what you're going to do. I breathed and put verbs on the table. Full daylight at work, emails, CCs, meeting rooms with glass. No one-on-one coffees. No optional anything that blurs. Therapy already started. You can see my calendar. I'll say no to rooms that turn me into someone I like more than I should. I'll learn to bring the ache home and call it what it is. She shut the water off and faced me. Calendars and CCs won't touch motive. They'll help. They won't fix. She came back to the table and sat, inches that felt like miles. My boundaries, she said, counting on her fingers like dosage. I need space this week. Guest room for you. 2 scheduled touch points. Wednesday logistics, Saturday check-in. If you slip, I leave the conversation. If you argue with my safety, I leave the house. No narratives to friends that turn me into an obstruction so you can be the repentant hero. Got it, I said, and wrote it down on the back of the grant letter so the ink would have somewhere to live. Second, she said, you'll send her one final message with me in the room. Not to humiliate, to end ambiguity. She pointed to my phone. Now, I unlocked the screen and typed while she watched. Maya, for clarity, I won't meet or chat outside scheduled teamwork. No more personal texts or coffees. Please route anything work-related through the project channel. I'm focusing on my marriage. I handed the phone to Leah before hitting send. She read it, nodded, and said, add. No reply needed. I added it and pressed send. The whoosh sounded like a small door closing in a large house. We waited. No dots. No reply. A clean absence. Leah's shoulders lowered a half-inch. Mine had to learn. Third, she said softly, I want a reason to stay that isn't nostalgia. I need to see you choose me without me having to be the weather. She tapped the table. 3 choices a day. Small is fine, but explicit, and reported Saturdays, not to earn points, so you hear yourself. I will, I said. Today, I left the city because I said I would. I told you first, not last. I'm sleeping in the guest room without sulking. Saying them out loud made them heavier and real. She looked tired in a way sleep doesn't fix. When did you start slipping? She asked, and I heard the true question under the question. Was it me? No, I said. It was me not telling you I was scared of being smaller than my job. I rehearsed confessions to the wrong audience. I wanted a room to clap instead of a person to tell me where I'm crooked. She considered that for a long beat, then stood. I don't forgive you tonight, she said. Tonight is for accuracy. I can live with accurate, I said. It's the first thing that hasn't moved under my feet in months. She gathered her hair into a tie the way nurses do at the start of a shift. At the hallway, she paused. Tomorrow, text me your therapy time, she said, and take the dog to the park before lunch. He's been loyal to people who don't deserve it. Yes, ma'am, I said, and her half smile was so brief I might have imagined it. In the guest room, the pillow smelled like a version of me I used to trust. I lay there and let the ceiling be a ceiling. I typed 3 sentences into my notes app because practice needs places to repeat itself. I'm not special. I'm responsible. Admiration is a sugar I can't live on. Name arrangements. Out loud. On the nightstand, my phone lit with a notification. Calendar invite from Leah. Saturday check-in. Accuracy only. I accepted. Then I opened a new contact group and named it Daylight. Mark. Therapist. Boss. Leah. I didn't add Maya. Not because I wanted to punish or be punished. Because naming the arrangement is how a house learns not to lie to itself. The guest room has the acoustics of consequence, quieter than our bedroom, louder in the ways you don't get to choose. I woke before the alarm because shame keeps time. The dog thunked his cone against the door like a bailiff. I leashed him, pocketed a roll of bags, and walked to the park through air that tasted like old pennies in thaw. Naming things helps. Dog. Leash. Breath. Not man who almost burned his house down. Not before coffee. Leah's text arrived at 8:07. Therapy time? Noon. I'll send you the check-in after, I wrote. She replied with a thumbs up and a single period. Accuracy's punctuation. At 10 o'clock, Mark called. You still boring? Spectacularly, I said. Guest room. Dog park. Therapy in 2 hours. Good. Remember, your goal isn't to be forgiven. It's to be eligible for trust. Different math. Different math, I echoed, letting the phrase sit where my excuses used to live. I drafted a message to my boss. Optional mixers. I'll be declining after-hours events for the next 90 days. I'll over-prepare for the workday sessions. I read it 3 times, took out a line that tried to buy approval, and hit send. His reply was instantaneous, like he'd been waiting to be disappointed. We'll see how that plays. I typed "we will" and put the phone face down because not every exchange deserves extra oxygen. Therapy at noon. My therapist, Ruth, has a way of turning a room into a mirror without making you hate the face in it. I told her about the guest room, the text to Maya, the way Leah said accuracy like a lighthouse, non-negotiable, helpful, not personal. Ruth drew a square on her pad. Call this your house, she said. She labeled 1 wall boundaries, 1 behaviors, 1 beliefs, 1 belonging. You try to fix belonging by rearranging the furniture of behaviors without telling the truth about your beliefs. That makes walls sag. I want to rebuild, I said. Good, she said. Start with daily inspections, not grand openings. Send Leah your reports. And when you feel like giving a speech, write it down and read it to the dog. At 1:17, I texted Leah, therapy done. Daily report tonight. Taking dog to the groomer at 3. Picking up your grant letter prints at 4. Received, she wrote. A clean receipt. No confetti. Back home, I stood at the threshold between our hall and the guest room. It felt like a customs line. Declare what you're carrying. I wrote 3 sentences on an index card and taped it to the dresser. Say it sooner. Don't decorate loneliness. Don't audition remorse. Then I set an alarm for 6 p.m. to write the day's choices. At 2:40, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize and a city code that made my stomach tighten. I let it go to voicemail. A transcription appeared. Pharmacy reminder for Leah. I forwarded it to her and wrote, forwarding without comment per rules. Thank you, she replied. The per rules mattered. Proof I wasn't using logistics as intimacy. Groomer, prints, emails. I moved through tasks like a person practicing scales. In the lobby of the print shop, a familiar voice said my name. I turned. Maya. Of course. No neon, no stage, just a human buying cardstock like the rest of us. We both paused, then she lifted a hand. Hello, not invitation. Hey, she said. Daylight. Daylight. I said, grateful for our new shared word. How's the house? She asked. Not Leah. Not you. The house. Under inspection, I said. Walls first. Good, she said. Keep it boring. Her eyes flicked to the stack of prints. You volunteering? Proofreading, I said, staying where verbs live. She smiled like a colleague acknowledging a clean boundary. Glad we're clear. We stepped aside for a teenager lugging a science fair trifold. No more words. No almost. We left in opposite directions, both of us smaller in the right ways. At 5:55, I sat at the kitchen table with my index card and wrote the day's 3 choices. 1. Declined after-hours events, emailed boss in daylight. 2. Forwarded pharmacy message without commentary. 3. Spoke to Maya in public, said nothing extra, left first. I wanted to add a 4th. Didn't ask Leah for a gold star. I didn't. The not asking was the point. Leah came home with paint samples and the thrifted lamp she's been hunting for. Brass, humble, handsome in a way that doesn't try hard. She set it on the counter between us like a peace offering from a future we might be allowed to visit. That's a good lamp, I said. It is, she said. Bulbs warm without lying. We ate leftover pasta, my report on the table like salt. Ordinary, necessary, unspectacular. After Leah said, you ran into her. Not a question. My face had confessed. Print shop. 30 seconds. Daylight, I said. I left first. Thank you, she said, for telling it now, not next week. We stood the lamp on the hall table and plugged it in. The light made a circle like a halo that got tired and sat down. Leah watched it for a beat. Guest room again tonight? Yes, I said. Unless you want. I want accuracy. She cut in, not unkind. Guest room, I repeated. Naming it kept me from pretending the floor was something friendlier. In bed, I read Ruth Square again in my notes. Boundaries, behaviors, beliefs, belonging. I wrote beside beliefs. I believed admiration could keep me from asking for care. New belief. Asking beat stealing. The sentence felt like a plank under a foot that had been slipping. I texted Mark. No after hours for 90 days. Ran into M. Said hi, left first. Boring maintained. Good, he wrote. You're not the main character. You're the maintenance crew. Fix the rails. Trains can run later. Thursday, the VP forwarded my email to HR with a passive-aggressive noted, as if my boundaries violated a dress code. I replied to both. Happy to review business hours commitments. After hours availability remains no for the next 90 days. Leah saw the thread because I CC'd Daylight. She didn't respond. She didn't need to. Daylight isn't applause, it's weather. Friday, the dog lost the cone and did victory laps like joy was a job. Leah laughed, real, unguarded for 3 seconds. I didn't try to bottle it. I let it pass like a front that promised better air if we didn't chase it. Saturday arrived with the check-in we'd scheduled. I made coffee. She brought her notebook. We sat on opposite ends of the couch like 2 people building a bridge from each side. Accuracy only, she reminded. Accuracy, I agreed and opened my page. I read the 3 choices. She put small check marks, her new love language for seen. Then she asked Ruth's question without knowing it. What belief did you retire this week? I stared at the lamp, at the circle it made on the wall. That being admired is safer than being known, I said. New belief. Known is hard, but it doesn't collapse when rooms change. Leah breathed out. Okay, she said. 1 more week, guest room. 2 check-ins. Same rules. If we keep this boring, the house might hold. The house will hold, I said. Saying it didn't make it true. Living it might. We ended without hugs or speeches. She stood, then paused. "Thank you for daylight," she said, and touched the lamp with one finger, as if blessing a small, honest thing. After she left the room, I wrote one more line on my index card because names matter, daylight, on purpose. Then I put the card in my wallet where I used to keep coupons I never redeemed. I planned to wear the words out. By week 2, boring had texture. The guest room creaked in new places. The lamp in the hall threw its patient circle. I wrote my 3 choices nightly and stopped expecting them to impress me. They weren't supposed to. They were supposed to hold. Monday morning handed me a test I didn't schedule. Leah's sister called while I was lacing my shoes. I heard the shape of bad news in her hello. Leah put the call on speaker. "Mom's dizzy again," Janice said. "Nothing dramatic, just not right. PCP can't see her till Friday." Leah's jaw did that small clench I know from board meetings that go dumb at the last minute. "I'll drive up after lunch," she said. "I'll come," I said, instinct more than plan. Leah raised a palm, not to stop me, to slow me. "You could drive," she said carefully, "and wait in the lobby. I don't want you in the exam room. Not yet." She looked almost apologetic, which hurt more than if she had barked. "Accuracy," she added. "Accuracy." I repeated and texted my boss, leaving at noon. "Family medical appointment. I'll log an early start tomorrow." He replied with a shrug emoji that said I measure the wrong things. On the highway, Leah watched mile markers like a metronome. "You can put music on," she said. "I'm listening," I answered, and meant it. I wanted to fill the air with comfort. Silence did a better job. At the clinic, I found a chair near a ficus that looked like a retired security guard and wrote my 3 choices for the day, even though the day wasn't done. 1. Drove, but didn't narrate. 2. Waited without negotiating access. 3. Answered Jenna's logistics question instead of editorializing her worry. The nurse called Leah's mom, and Leah stood, then stopped. "Thank you for not guessing," she said quietly, and went in. An hour later, Leah came out with a handout and eyes that looked both older and relieved. "Orthostatics," she said. "Salt water time. Follow-up Monday. Manageable." She said the last word like it had glass edges but could still be held. I drove us to her mom's house, fixed a wobbling table, changed a bulb in the hallway. The tiny repairs you do when the big systems are out of your hands. Leah handled meds. I handled lunch. When her mom napped, Leah leaned in the doorway and watched her breathe. "I hate that she's human," she said, half to me, half to the air. "Me too," I said, and the sentence behaved for once. No extra sugar, no sermon. On the way home, my phone buzzed with an email I didn't expect. Contract reallocation, Chicago project. The PM had reassigned accounts. Maya's name wasn't next to mine anymore. No fanfare, no footnote, just new columns. A separate email from her arrived seconds later. "FYI, I asked to be moved. Daylight is easier when the rooms are simple. Wishing you steadiness." I felt the breathtaking mercy of someone removing temptation without making a speech about it. I typed, "Thank you. Same wishes back." No need to reply. I didn't CC Daylight. I forwarded the PM's official notice to Leah instead with the subject project update only. She wrote received. I wasn't sure if she'd seen Maya's private note. I didn't ask. That, too, was part of learning. Wednesday, Ruth drew a new little rectangle labeled scripts. "You keep drafting grand gestures," she said, then catching yourself. "Good. Now, draft tiny scripts you can actually act on." She had me rehearse 3 sentences I could use when pressure invited me back into old performances. "I'm not available after hours. Let's cover this in the morning." I can answer that in email where it stays exact. "No, thanks." I practiced them out loud until my mouth stopped trying to turn them into monologues. When I left, I texted Leah the therapy time and the 3 sentences with a line. Holding me to these is fair. Thursday brought another test that didn't announce itself. The VP pinged me with an all-hands invite titled Q3 Rally, Celebrate Wins. The exclamation point felt like a dare. The last slide of those meetings always turns in a bar after, optional. I wrote back, I'll join the session. Won't do drinks for the next 90 days. He replied with a confetti emoji and live a little, which is easier to say when you're not the one cleaning up. I didn't clap back. I set a phone reminder for 4:55. Walk to car. Call Leah from the lot. Tell her one small true thing. At 4:55, I did exactly that. The VP thinks boundaries are a fad, I said. I didn't argue. I just left. What's your small true thing? She asked, playing along with the game we used to play when we forgot how to be uncomplicated. I wanted to be admired, I said. I chose to be accountable instead. There was a long pause. Thank you for saying the want first, she said. It matters. Friday night, I cooked badly on purpose. Breakfast for dinner, eggs with crispy edges, toast too dark, strawberries that had no right being this good in February. Leah showed me a draft of the foyer paint plan. I proofed her captions and didn't fix her voice. When I reached for the plate to rinse it, she grazed my forearm with her sleeve by accident. We both felt it. Neither of us performed anything around it. Progress is sometimes two people not making a scene. Saturday's check-in lived up to its name. Accuracy only. I read my list. She drew her quiet check marks. Then she flipped her notebook to a page titled, if/then, a thing she does when anxiety needs choreography. If your VP keeps pushing drinks, then you can forward invites to daylight and reply with that first sentence, she said. If I catch myself grading you on tone, then I step out and breathe instead of assigning motives. We're building signage, I said, like a museum that knows visitors get lost. Like a house, she corrected. Houses need labels when you're moving walls. After, she stood in the kitchen doorway with a look I hadn't earned but recognized, evaluating next steps, not promises. One more week guest room, she said. But if next week stays boring, you can nap on the couch Sunday. Not the bed, the couch. Policies have to start somewhere. Copy, I said, and didn't let my face make a festival out of the word couch. That afternoon, at the community center, a volunteer named Louise clapped me on the shoulder and said, Leah's lucky. Not a lot of dudes show up like that. Old me would have taken a compliment like a drink. New me said, she deserves better than my learning curve. I'm catching up. Louise blinked, then nodded, as if relieved I hadn't asked to be a statue. In the evening, I sat with the dog on the floor and read my index card out loud. Say it sooner. Don't decorate loneliness. Don't audition remorse. Daylight on purpose. He yawned in a way that looked like agreement. I wrote tomorrow's grocery list with Leah, milk, bread, patience, and put my phone face down where it couldn't draft trouble. Before bed, Leah stood in the hall and looked at me the way you look at a thing you're deciding whether to keep. You're quieter, she said. I'm listening, I said. Keep doing that, she answered, and turned off the lamp. The circle on the wall faded slow, like a good rule becoming habit. By week 3, the guest room felt less like exile and more like a workshop where I rebuilt joints I'd worn out with shortcuts. The lamp in the hall kept doing its patient work. Daylight had become a habit. Cease, glass rooms. No thanks said in complete sentences. I wasn't proud of myself. I was steady, which is rarer and more useful. Wednesday morning, Leah texted, Mom's follow-up at 1:40. Same rules as last time. Copy. I'll drive. Lobby chair, not a hero, I wrote. She sent back a tiny okay that didn't promise anything. Accuracy's tone. At the clinic, the same ficus guarded the same corner of carpet. I read a chapter from a paperback I've carried for years and never finished. The way some people carry grief, quiet, dog-eared, unbragged. Leah came out 40 minutes later with the same word I'm learning to respect. Manageable. We ate soup in a diner with napkins that dissolve if you ask them to help. She didn't reach for my hand. I didn't pout. We left a tip like people who understand small kindnesses are not a moral performance, they're practice. In the car, Leah said, Saturday we'll try the couch nap. She said it like a weather report, not a treat. Bring your 3 choices list. I will, I said, and didn't make it a parade. Friday evening brought a different kind of test. A ping from an unknown number. Heard you're taking space. Grab a drink? Strictly friendly. The area code was local. The tone wasn't. Old me would have turned it into a chance to audition integrity. New me wrote 3 words without decoration. No. Married. Goodbye. I blocked the number. Then I wrote it down as a choice, not a triumph, and told no one until Saturday when it belonged in the report. Saturday's check-in started with coffee and ended with us both a little more human than we started. Leah read my list. 1. Blocked an invitation instead of entertaining it. 2. Declined after hours without explanation. 3. Told Mark I wanted praise and sat with the wand instead of shopping for it. She made the small check marks, and then, surprise, she made a 4th one next to nothing at all. What's the 4th for? I asked. For not narrating your goodness like a fundraiser, she said. Dry yes, but softer around the edges than last week. After, she stood in the hall and said couch. I lay down on the couch like a student who has finally learned how to sit still. Leah read near the window, the good lamp making that tired halo on the wall. The dog, newly free from his cone, sprawled on the rug like he owned real estate. 15 minutes into the nap, that wasn't quite a nap, Leah said, Can I ask a dangerous question? Please. If I hadn't drawn a line, would you have stopped? There are answers that tidy a room and answers that keep it standing. I don't know, I said. I want to say yes. The honest thing is, I don't know. I know I'm stopping now because the cost finally has my full attention. She watched me the way a lifeguard watches a swimmer. Not unkind, not casual. Thank you, she said. Honesty isn't romance, but it's furniture. That afternoon at the community center, a kid from the poetry club asked Leah, What's the theme next month? Leah said, Truth before forgiveness, and the kid wrote it down like it was a lyric. I felt seen in a way that didn't flatter. It measured. Sunday evening, I cooked again, this time edible. Leah set 2 plates like we were not rehearsing, but living. After dinner, she looked over the rim of her glass and said, Next week, if it stays boring, we can try sleeping in the same room on Friday. You bring the lamp. What changes if I do? I asked carefully. Nothing global, she said. Just the air. Then, before I could thank her like a man receiving a pardon, she added, This is not forgiveness. This is capacity. Monday came with a corporate hurricane. The VP quit, or was quit depending on who you believed. An all-hands meeting appeared on calendars with a subject line, Trying Too Hard. Fresh chapter. In the scramble, no one remembered my 90-day boundary. No one asked me to drinks. Rooms rarely remember your rules. You have to. Tuesday, Ruth asked me, What does success look like if forgiveness never arrives? The question landed like a tool in my hand. Success is that I become a person who keeps his word in small rooms, I said. Even if no one claps. Good, she said, because applause is a sugar. Character eats protein. Friday night, I carried the lamp into our bedroom. It looked both humble and brave in that space, like a guest who knew not to overstay. I changed the bulb to warm. Leo watched me like a contractor checking measurements. Guest room is still there if I say stop, she reminded. I know, I said. We lay down under the same roof of blanket, not touching like 2 people guarding a field they hope to plant in spring. In the dark, Leo whispered one sentence. No speeches. I want to make our house a place forgiveness could live even if it never visits, I said. She didn't answer right away. I stared at the ceiling and vowed not to fill the quiet with auditions. Then she said, Okay, just that, a plank across water. I slept, not the oblivion of denial, sleep with edges, honest in its depth. In the morning, I walked the dog while Leah watered the herb pots and moved the rosemary closer to the sun. Her handwritten note from months ago finally obeyed. Back inside, she handed me a sticky note with 3 words: "Keep it boring." She stuck it to the lamp base. "So you don't forget who invited this light," she said. "I won't," I answered, and meant it. A month to the day after the first accuracy-only check-in, we sat at the same table with the same coffee mugs and a quieter kind of caution. The lamp's circle on the wall had become less of a metaphor and more of a routine. I'd added 2 new index cards to my wallet. Ask before assuming, and no optional that blurs. They were creased now, like anything carried daily. Leah went first. My mom's numbers are steady. The center's foyer is painted. The kids wrote poems about truth that made me forget how small budgets are. She sipped. "How's your square?" "Boundaries holding. Behavior's boring." "Beliefs." I tapped the page. I retired one. "That adrenaline is proof I'm alive." "New belief." "Rhythm is." "Belonging?" she asked. "I'm practicing belonging without applause," I said, "which is slower and strangely kinder." She nodded. Then she surprised us both. "I want to try dinner at your parents' next week," she said. "It's been a while. If we go, you do the talking when your dad asks about work. No jokes, no minimizing, just human." "Yes," I said, and felt old instinct stretch and then sit down. Midweek, a thank you card arrived addressed to Leah from a teen who had read at the showcase. "Ms. Leah, you made a room I could stand in." Leah tucked it into the lamp base like a talisman. "Rooms that don't lie," she said. "That's my work." She didn't look at me when she said it. She didn't need to. That night, while sorting mail, I found the notebook where this began, the one where I'd once kept shadow facts about Leah, tallying late shifts and perfumes like I was an auditor of suspicion. I could have thrown it out quickly and claimed virtue. Instead, I brought it to the table and set it down like evidence. "I want you to see this," I said. "Not to reopen wounds. To mark what we're not doing anymore." I flipped it open. Pages of small, petty lines stared back. Times, guesses, inventions. Leah didn't flinch. She didn't read. She put her fingers on the cover and closed it gently. "Name it," she said. "Shame wearing a lab coat." I answered. "Loneliness pretending to be useful. Me counting the wrong things." "What do you want to do with it?" "Not hide," I said. "Not keep." I slid it across the table. She stood, walked to the recycling bin, and set it inside without ceremony. Not fire, not spectacle, just gone from the house. Saturday, we did our check-in like a pair of architects revising a plan. I read the week's choices. She marked them. Then she said, "I have a request you can say no to." That alone was a new kind of music. "Say it." "I want a clear story for when people ask where we were. Not the bloody version. The honest one. We hit a slope. We named it. We chose boring. We're building a house that tells the truth. If you want to add anything about your part, choose verbs." I confessed. I declined. I reported. No adjectives. "Yes," I said. "Verbs or silence." She looked at me for a long time and then did something I hadn't earned and still received. She moved from her end of the couch to the middle. We sat shoulder to shoulder, not sentimental, nearly comfortable. The dog leapt up like a man who believes work is finally over. That evening, I drove us to my parents'. My dad asked about Chicago. I said, "I'm traveling less. It's better for me." He grunted approval, then told a story about a carburetor that made sense only to men who learned to fix what squeaked with tools, not therapy. My mom hugged Leah twice like a person celebrating a guest who came back after threatening to cancel. On the drive home, Leah said, "Thank you for not performing." I said, "Thank you for not grading." Back in our kitchen, the lamp hummed its low song. Leah took the sticky note from its base, "Keep it boring," and pressed it a little firmer. "I'm not promising a timeline," she said. "Forgiveness is a tenant that gives 30 days notice and leaves early or late. But I'm not evicting it preemptively either. That's more generosity than I deserve," I said. "It's accuracy," she answered. Deserve is a noisy word. We went to bed, not as a ribbon cutting, just two people who decided to share sleep honestly. In the dark, she said, say one small truth. I said, I wanted to check my phone twice during dinner. I didn't. She said, mine. I wanted to check your face to see if you were lying. I didn't. We lay there with our tiny honesty, and it was enough to fall asleep. In the morning, I moved the rosemary pot to the sunnier spot by the porch stairs. Leah smiled at it like a teacher who sees a student finally show up on time without being asked. The thing about plants, she said, is they don't care about apologies. They care about light and water. People too, I said. People too, she agreed. I don't know if forgiveness will move in, pay rent, and become a citizen of this house. I know the house can hold it now. Not because I deserve it. Not because we earned it on a scoreboard, but because we stopped lying to the walls. I used to think love was proven by grand gestures. Lately, I think it's proven by boring ones, by the quiet audacity of showing up, by the unglamorous ritual of telling the truth before it grows teeth, by the lamp that keeps making a circle of light, even when no one is clapping. If you're listening for a moral, here's mine. Lines are liars when you're standing on slopes. Name the slope. Put rails on it. Choose the house. And if you can't make yourself a hero, make yourself maintenance. Bridges need that more than speeches. Leah tapped the lamp once with her finger, the smallest benediction, and said, breakfast? Eggs, I said. Triangles. Triangles, she smiled. And for the first time in a long time, the smile reached her eyes and stayed.